Hey guys, no sooner did I finish looking over the sets that recently arrived from the East Coast when these two boxes arrived via FedEx. I actually know what's inside of these. It's an item that was donated by an online friend. I gave him some instructions and links to tips on how to pack such items, so let's hope they survived, and this little note on top should give you some indication of what is in here. Fragile glass picture tube, this end up. Definitely running tight on space to store, display, and work on my collection. And as they say, when it rains it pours. I've also been contacted by a Video Karma member who lives near me and is moving to the West Coast and doesn't want to take all of the sets with him, so he's actually offered to give me, free of charge, an RCA 721 and 630TS. So yes, if you're keeping count at home, that would mean I would have 3 RCA 721s and 3 RCA 630TSs. However, I don't know what condition his are in. I do think there's some condition issues with at least one of them, as are there with mine, so perhaps between those and what I've got, I'll make 2 complete nice examples of each. Now, as that label indicated, this should be a picture tube, and not all that big of one. It's just really, really well packed. So once I get this out of here, it will take up a lot less space. It should be a 10 BP4 CRT. You can see the base cap is very loose, but doesn't appear to be broken. I've actually had really good luck with picture tubes being sent to me, especially the smaller ones, like 10-inch. Seem to be pretty sturdy. Or, perhaps I spoke too soon. I think this is actually a 12-inch. Yeah, it's got to be a 12. Here's a closer look at it. The coating's flaking off, but that can be redone. And it is a 12LP4A Videotron. Don't believe it's been rebuilt. So a little bit of a bump here. I think it's from the original manufacturing. If it's been rebuilt, it'd be some waviness down in here. Getter looks good. And there's the ion trap magnet assembly. So what the 12LP4A means, it is a gray frosted faceplate to reduce glare. A little bit of a grayish tinge to it. Alright, now for the other, much heavier, larger box. Alright, now for the main box. And once again, I gotta say a big thanks for going above and beyond to not just donate this, but all the time, effort, and money to ship this across the country. I know this took a lot of work. So, if you haven't guessed already, yeah, it's a TV. And it's an oldie, a 12-inch round black and white picture tube. But this is something a little bit different. Certainly, I do not have anything like it. I've never seen anything like it. Kind of looks like a porthole, but it's not a Zenith, not a Raytheon, but yes, it does have a porthole opening. And what it is an Airline. Don't recall the exact model number. And it is a heavy beast, so I'll see what I can do about getting this out. I kind of like to keep the box. It's a nice sturdy box, but the easiest thing to do might be just cut one of the sides open. Alright, there she is. Don't recall if he had the knobs or not. If he did, I expect they're inside somewhere. Looks like the shaft got mangled a little. Don't know if that happened in shipping or what, but there we go. Airline television sold by Montgomery Wards. I'm guessing their controls down here. Yeah, nice cast aluminum, brightness, vertical hold, horizontal hold. Here we got the channels going in a rather odd manner. Because, hey, this is a continuous tuner. Did not realize that. Fine and coarse vernier drive, just like the Philco radios have been working on lately. So we got 2 through 6. And then crazy, we jump over here, 7 through 13. And this combination, power, volume, and contrast. And see, definitely a porthole. Porthole meaning it's just a big round picture tube, even though the picture is 4:3 format. So typically you'd have the option of having, well, letterboxed bar at the top or bottom, or expanding it so the corners are really cut off, or stretching it vertically to make it into a square format. Sides on this are a little weird. It's actually cloth on both sides. Saves weight, I suppose, and aids in ventilation. And as for the back, yep, on the packing material, a little rusty and grungy. Oh, and the back's missing. But a new one could certainly be fabricated. Oh! There's one of the tubes. 5U4, looks like the keyway is already busted off of it. I'm guessing that one over here, not a big deal. 5U4s are common enough. And the cage appears to be missing from high voltage area. Here are the knobs. And it's got a nice patina of rust. There's the speaker down in there. Flyback's okay. And the cage could be a bit of a challenge. Assuming that there's got one, because I can see that it's not just a simple box. It's rounded, probably made out of sheet metal that was spot welded together or something. Well, I'm going to continue to clean this stuff out and get a closer look at the chassis. Here's a look at the speaker. Used to be an early permanent magnet type, in good condition. I took a closer look at that tuner, and I think it is variable inductor. I'm thinking those little trimmers there to tweak the inductors, and then they perhaps have slugs that move up and down, similar to Strumberg Carlson tuner. So, let's find out. Okay, yep, inductors. And a whole mess of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ganged inductors. So we got a 6 AG5 RF amp. And I'm thinking this bandpass tuner. And a local oscillator. So these two would control the frequency of the local oscillator. And these limit the band pass to the channel that's selected. We got the other half of the 6J6 as a mixer, and there's the out with the earlier type IF, around 25 megacycles. You want to take a look? Horizontal looks fairly conventional. Phase discriminator picks off a signal from the output, flyback, feeds it back. Phase comparison, control 6SN7 horizontal multi-vibrator, driving 6BG6 horizontal output tube, drives flyback, 6W4 damper, and 1X2 high voltage rectifier. So they get a little boost voltage off of this as well for the horizontal. Maybe not. Typically you'd see that boost. Oh yeah, okay, I see that. It's going around over here. Yeah, it's going to horizontal circuitry. Let's see, power supply. Straightforward enough. 5G4, 2 chokes, and a bunch of caps, bleeder resistors, provide various voltages. Looks like some models have a phono TV switch. And just use it for the audio amp. Let's see, I have 2 filaments here, a Y and a Z, and then one with X going to ground. So it looks like the vast majority of the tubes are powered by ground and then that X filament. But well, so is the pitcher tube. Sometimes they have a dedicated one just for the pitch tube, but nope. That ZY, that's for the damper tube. They didn't have to do that though. 6W4, the filament is isolated from the cathode. That's a nice touch in case this ever was too short over. It wouldn't fry the transformer. So it's on its own. I was expecting a set this early to have a split video and sound IF, but no, both sound and video go through the IF, pick out a sound signal after the detector, and go up to ratio detector 68, 6K6 audio output tube, and for video, it's got DC restoration, HEC amp. This should be a pretty well performing set. Here's what I found inside that bag. Some knobs and this curious thing. It's like a brass cylinder with one end having a threaded rod with a nut on the end of it. Well, if it was original, I imagine I'd find somewhere to mount this inside. Perhaps I can find it on the Sam's reference photos. As for the knobs, I don't know if these are right, because they don't match what's shown here. Plus, it doesn't look right, because there should be an outer and an inner for both. There should be a coarse and fine tuning, and then a separate on a volume and contrast control. But one of these is just a single knob, also a bit chipped up. Well, let's see how these fit. I might have to change my mind on that. Maybe this is correct. Maybe you do just have a single knob here. Although there's no indicator of what channel you're on, but maybe there's a pointer where it's broken off. It certainly fits on there well, and fits right inside that opening. This side I'm not so sure about though. One, it's so far recessed that the outer knob doesn't even fit, and it's not quite right. Well, I think the outer knob is, but the inner knob shows like a half moon, whereas this is slotted and doesn't really fit on there right. But who's to say this is the original control? So, but again though, it does fit on there so well. But it sure doesn't fit on that control shaft, right? Oh, again, hopefully the SAMs will provide some insight. Then there's the problem with sets that are rarish and unusual. Definitely cool to have, very collectible, more valuable, but also more difficult to work on because of less service info and spare parts. Replacement parts are much harder to find. for the challenge. This will be a very, very nice addition to the collection. I just tipped the set on its side so I can unmount the chassis and pull it out. And I noticed that this side panel is not secured very well, which makes me wonder, were these designed to come out so you could service the TV? On the other side, I can see that it's definitely held in by a number of wood screws that would be a bit awkward to get at. Certainly if there's some on below, you couldn't get them out with the chassis in place. I also found at least one screw so far floating around inside there. I noticed there's some tear outs around where the speaker was, so I wonder if the speaker was shipped mounted and it broke loose during shipping. And maybe some screws are missing. They're supposed to be holding this panel in place. I definitely want to get that secured. Meanwhile, I'll get this chassis out. Looks like there's only 2 screws left holding it in. Pretty unusual to find a chassis with all the screws in place. And let's see. This isn't the model number. Looks like it's just a cabinet number of some sort. Found a few more screws floating around inside. Now I can get a better look at that panel that's come loose. So there's still one screw here and up here that just ripped out. One up here did as well. So maybe in shipping this side just got mushed in, which bent that chassis bolt and ripped these screws out. So I can see there's 1, 2, so all these screws are present, and this one came loose. Went down here. Hopefully I could just tighten them back down and reattach that without any trouble. I was able to get this side resecured. I turned my attention to the speaker, and I'm pretty sure this is not the original speaker. Let's see, in this opening here, there's 4 screw holes fairly tight around that opening. There's one down here and another one up there that don't match that pattern. And the speaker lines up with those 2 newer holes and is much bigger than that opening, so that makes me think this is a replacement. I could check the part number as well. And I think that's what those 2 screws were I found floating around inside, and they just ripped out. So they would have been done, one in that lower left and one in the upper right. Alright, now let's finally take a closer look at the chassis. As I noted earlier, got some surface corrosion. A bit heavy in some areas, but nothing I can't deal with. There's that wacky tuner. All the variable coils. Let's see if we can see these coils move up and down as I adjust the tuning. Oh yeah, yeah. Pretty obvious now that it's out in the open. And now it appear to be working smoothly. Cool. Looks like all the tubes are present, with the exception of that 05BR that had the broken keyway. Let's see that goofy piece that is broken off. I believe goes right here. And somehow or another, this adjusts the centering. I've got one other set, a Sentinel. 50 Sentinel that uses something like this, and they're a real pain to adjust. It does both focusing and centering, and it can be tricky at times to get it all working right. Also a screw, I think that's kind of like coarse, and that's fine. What typically happens is you get the picture centered and the focus isn't so hot, or it's not uniform across the whole screen. Yep. Let's get under that chassis and see what's what. I don't want to remount the picture tube. Oh, and, I guess I'll test it before I do that. No point in mounting a dud picture tube. Alright, definitely. Oh, this isn't going to balance too well on its own. Definitely been some work done under here. Find a date code maybe on this cap, see what might have been done. PVC 405, not sure. This orange drop, I'm not sure. 6PS 510, not sure if any of those are date codes. Uh, 6602, could be second week in 1966. I could believe these parts are from around 66. Yeah, there is a fifth hole in the center. I was wondering what this bracket was for. There's a hole through the bottom of the cabinet, so there should be 5 chassis mounting bolts. I noticed these from the outside. Kind of curious, adjustable coils, the way they do this. It's for like width and linearity coils. Okay, it is just that crude. You just scooch these along. It's just a spring mounted to spring going through here with one loop on the outside, and then they bent it over and wrapped it around the internal slug there. Alright, gets the job done, sure. Why not? That's the coarse horizontal oscillator frequency. Not much to see in the tuner on the underside. That makes it look fairly simple. Some nasty corroded wire wound. Cement coated or sand coated resistors, probably open. And oh yeah, that is a replacement control. Not even mounted securely. No wonder things don't match up right. Alright. Combination, volume, contrast, and power. Well, let's see about tracking something more suitable down for that. Otherwise, I don't see any problems here. Not much in the way of filter caps. Well, I guess when you have 2 chokes for the power supply, you don't need much. In fact, are there any can caps mounted? Ah, yeah, they're hiding underneath the yoke support. You got 2 of them down here, and the rest are mounted below. Alright, cool. Well, I took my reference photos and I'll start spreading the word. That doesn't look too good. And see if anybody else has got one, has any thoughts on it. See about getting the proper control for that. But, next up, I think I'll take a look at the picture tube. Let's see if the CRT has any life left. Alright, got filament glue. No leakage. No leakage. And cut off control. And emissions. Weak but climbing. I want to sit for a while. experience tells me this picture tube will be just fine. Sure enough, after about 10 minutes, emissions climbed well into the green, so back into the set this picture tube goes. Here it is with the CRT reinstalled. Still need to put the rubber cushioning in. Before I do that though, I wanted to spend a little bit of time attempting to remove the corrosion. This section here, and tried a few spots on the chassis, and it's coming off, but it's going to take some time and some effort. I've been asked why they would plate chassis with cadmium. Well, this is why. Sure, the cadmium will oxidize over the years, but that's better than having rusty steel everywhere, because this is not plated, that's for sure. Something else I'm going to do is take a quick look around my junk box. I've salvaged controls out of TVs, and I think I might have one that is more suitable for this. I think the knobs just fit onto it. In particular, I think I've got an Admiral control, or perhaps one from an RCA that is the same deal, power, volume, and an outer control with the same type mounting as the knobs were intended for. I posted some photos on Video Karma and received some good information from other members. Also did a little research on my own. Now, right from the beginning, this Airline had reminded me of another TV, and it turns out it was this one, which is a Raytheon model 1101. Very similar cabinet and very similar knobs. Control panel is a little bit different. The knobs are slightly different. There seem to be some kind of pointers here, and it looks like maybe this does have a fine and a coarse tuning, whereas mine is just a single knob. And mine may have had a little nub like that, and maybe that's maybe that had broken off. I'm not sure. Now, I looked at the schematic for this, and it looks very similar to the Airline. Well, it turns out that's because they were both made by a third company, Belmont Radio. So the 05BR and my model number turns out to be 05 is for 1950 and the BR is for Belmont Radio. I also went and poked around in Riders and found it. But it's not listed under Airline, it's listed under Montgomery Ward. And here it is, 05BR-3024. Now I have a C, this is the B version. I'll show you the C in a moment. Lots of good info here. Pretty much all my questions have been answered. So for the controls, dual control, single control, and I believe the knobs I have are indeed the original. That piece that was floating around loose, I now know where that goes. It screws right into here, and that's for adjusting the focus centering control. Looks like it originally had an extra handle that I no longer have. I just have the threaded and the sleeve part. And I can get tease of what the original back would have looked like. And this was loaded with good info. Here's a copy of the tube chart. So mine is a bit deteriorated. I suppose I could print this out and paste that inside the cabinet. This I found interesting. RMA wire color code, indicating what color wires are for what. I've certainly noticed in other TV chassis that they're different colored wires, and there seemed to be some rhyme or reason to them. Like typically, it seemed like red was the B+, but I didn't realize that there was actually a standard for this. I don't know if every manufacturer adhered to it, but they seem to indicate that in this model they did. I guess when I start working on it, I can refer to this and see if that is indeed the case. Well, this information is very good, but unlike the SAMs, you just don't get a photo and a parts locator. But otherwise, it's quite detailed, including the tuner and how it works and can be serviced, and so you get test waveforms, alignment info, full parts list. So I already checked on here, and the control that's messed up is this guy, dual control and switch, contrast 5K, volume 1 meg with a tap on it. I poked around, and RCA used a very similar control. I think it's also a 1 meg volume with a tap on it, and I think it's a 10K for the contrast. That may be close enough to use. Here's a schematic. Now let's jump over to the C version. Here I say it's very similar to the models previously described, except for some changes here. So I think between this and the SAMs, I will be in good shape. Let's see if I can zoom out that volume control. RF sound. Here it is with the tap. On the SAMs they show this in dashed lines again, and it's not used in all models. I imagine it would work alright without it, but that might provide some additional noise filtering or alter the characteristics of the output. Maybe it acts as a notch filter, I'm not exactly sure. The downside with the RCA is that the inner shaft, the knob fits, but the outer shaft isn't quite right, but I think I could file it down. And it's fairly long, so it might be long enough. And it has a power switch on it. Contrast, let's see. Where's the video amp? $5K, and on the RCA it's a 10K, but you see one end is just loose. So if I used a 10K, I would just have more range than I need, but I could also put like a 5K resistor in parallel with the control. It won't be linear anymore, but it will reduce the range of it. I should say not a 5K, I'm at a 10K in parallel with the 10K control. It will result in a 5K range. It just won't be linear. Here's the control I was talking about, salvaged out of an RCA 8T243, I think. So the power switch, volume control with the tap, and contrast. And certainly this is correct half moon for this knob, but this guy is meant for one where there's a slot on either side of a cylindrical shaft, whereas this is a half moon, but I think if I file down the opposite side, that'll fit on there alright. So that just leaves a question: is that shaft long enough? Well, I've already put the chassis back in the cabinet, so I'm not going to find out right now, but I will certainly put this control in with the chassis, and when I get around to working on it, we will find out for sure. I tightened down that CRT support and put the chassis inside and put in 5 good bolts to hold it secure, and cleaned up safety glass a bit and discovered that it is really scratched up on that front surface, and not the easiest thing to replace because I think it's got a little bit of a curve to it. Yeah, it definitely does. So I don't know what to do about that. Doing nothing for now. And I'm guessing that this used to have some kind of gold paint. I don't think it was plated. I think it's aluminum. And I don't know what exactly was on there. I don't think it was brass plate. Same goes for these, which are pretty chewed up. And the control panel cover here. And I did install a control I salvaged from an Admiral TV, and it is exactly the right kind of shafts, but unfortunately it's too short. So the knobs still don't fit on there. Well, I'm not going to pull it all back apart right now just to tinker around with that. I'll just tuck the knobs inside. I can see this one is a bit of a mess too. Let me get this back off. It's this escutcheon is a little bent up, and this knob doesn't track too well. I think the control shaft might be a little bent or off center. See, it got something happened to it there, pretty dinged up. So I've got my work cut out for me to make this thing Really looks sweet again. So the cabinet's got quite a bit of damage on it too. Only one real chip out of the veneer here. That seems to be fairly thick. So I can probably stand a bit of sanding and get most of this out and then refinish the whole thing. I guess on the positive side, it's pretty basic. It's this cabinets go, it's just all one color, no decals or anything. And these panels come off. So you don't have to green fill and tone and finish these big side areas. So between the back, big hole in the front, and the two sides, really all you've got, the only major surface is the top. So maybe it's not that much work after all. But save that for another day. So for now, that is going to be it for a look at an Airline, also known as a Montgomery Ward's porthole set from, let's say, around 1949.